This episode of the Huddle Breakdown is brought to you in association with the One Football app, your one-stop shop for all your football goodness. The One Football app is the best football app on the market right now. You can get your fixtures, your results, live scores, transfer news, squad updates, everything that you need on the team that you support is available now in the One Football app. The One Football app, you can subscribe to the team you support, and all of the stuff that you need on that team is available all in the one spot, and it's all completely free as well. So download the One Football app now using the link in the description below. Not only are you supporting the channel, supporting the Huddle Breakdown, you're also getting a top-notch football app as well. So use the link in the description below to download the One Football app now. So it is Group F for Celtic in the UEFA Champions League this year. That is Real Madrid, RB Leipzig, and Shakhtar Donetsk that await Celtic in the Champions League group stages. Group F is where Celtic land, and in many ways this is sort of the perfect tie for Celtic and a club like Celtic that are in pot 4. You've got your glamour tie in Real Madrid. You've got the team that you think that you can nick either 3 points or potentially 4 points off in RB Leipzig, and you've got the team that you think you're probably better than in Shakhtar Donetsk. So I'm happy with that draw. I was hoping for Group B when I saw the first couple of names come out, but it wasn't to be. It was Group F, and we landed with the current Champions League holders, Carlo Ancelotti's eyebrow up against Ange Postecoglou's sweater. Chico James and Alan Morrison are with me as we react to that. Alan, I'll come to you first. You're on your holly bobs, so you've been watching this with a glass of wine in your hand. What's your immediate reactions?
Yeah, I'm really pleased. I don't think it could have gone any better, actually. As I say, my first reaction was with Madrid is you just kind of hope they batter everybody else and then take 6 points off the other two, and then anything if we somehow freak a point against them, it's a bonus. But really that then opens it up to be essentially a three-team group, and I think a coherent fit Celtic team against those other two, I would be not confident, never that confident, but certainly quite optimistic about, I would say. We'll come on to the other two in a bit more detail. But yeah, first impressions, positive.
Mm-hmm. Just so people are aware of how these clubs are doing this year, because I know the seasons have just started, so it's still early days, and it may shape how the group goes later on in the season. RB Leipzig are currently in 11th in the Bundesliga, 3 matches in. They are yet to register a win, two draws and 1 loss for RB Leipzig so far. Real Madrid are 2 wins from 2 in La Liga, and Shakhtar Donetsk obviously in a difficult enough situation with all that's going on in Ukraine. They're currently 7th in the Ukrainian Premier League, so they are not in the best shape here. James, we were talking about this draw sort of roughly before it happened last week, and as bad as it sounds to say, Shakhtar Donetsk are probably the team that you want in this tournament, not just because they are a beatable team on any given day. It's also because of the situation that they're in terms of the losing key players because of what's going on, being upped out of your own house and all these horrible situations that are going on in Ukraine. In a purely football sense, it is the best time to get a team like Shakhtar in the group stages.
Yeah, forgive my crudeness, but when I saw the teams in it and Group F, I thought it stood for "fuck yeah." So it could not have gone better. Even Real Madrid, as good as they've been, obviously, and as good as they are, and as the level of resources they have, given that pool of teams that we could have faced, they don't play in a way that horrifies me. I mean, they could still absolutely pace us, obviously, but their style of play is one that doesn't, keep me up at night on a relative basis, and that's the key phrase, relative basis. I mentioned to you guys before we went live, I looked up on Transfer Market before we came on, and Shakhtar has a net sale of over 40 million, I think, euros for the transfer window so far. So again, understandable given their situation and what's unfolding tragically in Ukraine. But money makes the world go round relative to the quality of players that teams have, and they've sold some of their better players. So that I think their biggest signing is like around 2 million. I forget the guy's name, but he'll be fresh in our memory. He's at Ferencváros, or he was at Ferencváros. So again, we're not talking about them bringing in huge signings so far either. So that's certainly a positive. And Red Bull Leipzig, I think I said to you guys before we went live as well, I think people kind of conflate them with Salzburg to a degree. And Salzburg is the apple of my eye from an analytics perspective. Leipzig less so. And so even in that tier, in that second pot, it could have gone a lot worse. So when you add those three up, I think it's kind of the dream combination in a way, outside of getting Frankfurt, which everyone was praying for that. But outside of getting Frankfurt, I think this pretty close to being as good as we could have hoped for.
For just a bit of fun, it would have been nice to get an English team, but again, not to be. Madrid is a pretty nice place to go, as is Germany, for a few beers if you want to get a couple of steins before the game. Or I'm sure RB Leipzig is a good place to go to in terms of the match day experience. In terms of football, Alan, Real Madrid, the current Champions League holders, Carlo Ancelotti, we don't need to say too much about him. He's an unbelievable coach that, he's not really a modern coach, but he still manages to pull together these amazing teams that are full of superstars. This is actually an interesting Real Madrid team because it's not a Galactico team. It's not, your Ronaldos. It's a team of Benzema, who's, amazing at the minute and has been for the last couple of years. A really exciting couple of midfielders in, Eduardo Camavinga, who will probably be starting with them. And then a couple of really pacey wingers. In terms of the way that Real Madrid play, that'll be a very tough test for Celtic because of the way that Celtic play. It's almost counter opposites the way that the two teams set up. The pace in the Real Madrid wing would probably worry you, I'd imagine.
No, absolutely. I think Ancelotti's almost turned them into a team that's almost Italian in nature, traditionally, in terms of quite adaptable to the opposition, and they find a way to win. They do have a very strong squad, obviously, even though, like you say, it isn't filled with the big, expensive signings of yesteryear. And Vinicius is just getting better and better on the left, and Benzema just seems to never have a bad game. So that will be a very tough ask. And as I say, the pace that they break, if they see Celtic playing the way Celtic play, they'll be quite happy to even counterattack, which now might seem bizarre for Real Madrid to say, "Oh, they'll counterattack against Celtic." But if Ancelotti thinks that's the best way to win the game, and he thinks that's where the biggest danger will be posed, that's what they'll do. So I think that's going to be a really tough one. But I think I'd agree with James. I think the other two are definitely winnable. I mean, Shakhtar, terrible situation for them to be in. I'm not even sure that they'll get to play their home games. I don't know where they'll play their home games, frankly. I'm not sure, but it's probably going to be in a kind of neutral venue, which is another disadvantage for them. So it's a terrible situation. Leipzig, I mean, from what we saw, I saw Leipzig obviously up close in the Europa League last season when they played against the Rangers. And what struck me was just how tactically inflexible they were. They just did not respond to the way that the Rangers were set up. They just continued to try and play the same way. They didn't really, there was a blue wall put up in the middle, and they conceded the wings. And Leipzig continued to play one wing back on either side and completely ignored the space that was out there and didn't take the overloads. I just thought they were just so dumb the way they played, and very different to the Leipzig team that, as I say, we played 4 or 5 years ago, that were very quick, very direct, very aggressive, very athletic. This just seemed a completely different animal, very pedestrian, really. They've had a lot of transfer activity. They've brought back Timo Werner from Chelsea. David Raum is another big signing for them, 26 million. Javier Schlager, the Austrian midfielder, is the other one. They've lost quite a lot of players as well, so quite a lot bit of transition. But yeah, they've not started the season well, as you said. 2 defeats one defeat in the league, 2 draws, but also they're already out the cup as well. They lost to Bayern Munich, actually, I think, in the Super Cup. So yeah, it's if they're going to be the same level of tactical ineffectiveness as they showed last season, I'd be kind of comfortable that we would be very competitive against them. But they'll still be strong, obviously.
Yeah, absolutely. They've got a huge budget, but like James says, they're not RB Salzburg. They've lost their way a little bit. They've kind of been in and out of different coaches after Nagelsmann left. Jesse Marsch was there; he got sacked. And in terms of the players that they've been bringing in, it hasn't really been the same way that Salzburg have been recruiting either. So I think they're definitely a team that Celtic can have a good crack at least. Just to answer your previous question, Shakhtar will be playing their home games in the Stadion Wolska Polskiego in Warsaw, the home of Legia Warsaw. So that, again, Poland is a fun place to go for fans. So that should be a decent enough away trip for anybody who's lucky enough to get away to these games.
We've already scouted that ground in pre-season. That was prescient, wasn't it?
So let's talk about Celtic then, because those are our opponents. What we are yet to see is what Celtic are going to do on a European stage, in terms of the style of play, in terms of the players that Ange Postecoglou decides is going to be in the starting 11 for these games. We've already heard Matt O'Reilly discuss a potential changing game plan that Celtic have been working on in pre-season, and so far that it differs from the current game plan that they have been playing in the league. So what are we expecting from Celtic here? Are they going to be a bit more pragmatic with maybe a double pivot in midfield with Aaron Moy and Callum McGregor? Are they going to go, all guns blazing like they did against Bayer Leverkusen last season in the Europa League? How are we expecting Celtic to play here, lads?
Go ahead, Alan, because I have no clue. It sounds like a great mystery to me. This idea that we're working on something different. It's fascinating to me because I'm hopeful after hearing that, because a lot of anxiety, worried about playing the way we have under Ange so far in this forum has a lot of potential pitfalls. But having said that, real quick, and then I'll let you go, Alan, is I was just looking at, Shakhtar and Real Madrid are not really high pressing intensity sides. And obviously with Real Madrid, you've got the insane athleticism that you're going to have to deal with. But again, you're going to deal with that with Manchester City. You're going to deal with that with any of these, Chelsea, any of these level of clubs. You're going to deal with that. The question is, are they deploying it in a way that compounds some of our problems? So, if Real Madrid, it's a lesser evil here at this point. You're playing Real Madrid or you're playing Man City. So in playing Real Madrid, if they're going to play to hit us on the counter, is there potential huge problems there? Of course. But in my mind, that's a lesser evil than them pressing us high up the pitch and, going full bore attack on us and descending upon us with all of that athleticism. So I just wanted to touch upon that, because I'm not that current on Shakhtar, so I had to look that up. But yeah, they're not a big, high press intensity side either. So that's good news. And RB Leipzig have dialed it back to a degree compared to to Alan's point. So even within their kind of style of play, it's not as intense as it had been. So that, to me, those are all kind of pushing in our favor on a relative basis, independent of the fact that it looks like we might do something that I have no clue on as far as what the tweaks might be.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if it was anything radical. I think Leipzig really struggled against the high press at Ibrox last year. Actually, they really didn't cope with it well. So I'd imagine we'd try to do something quite similar in that regard. As you say, Donetsk, I think we have to absolutely go for them, really, home and away. And Madrid, I suspect Postecoglou's attitude will be, we're going to give them a right fright if we can. Try and lay a few gloves on them. So, I think someone, Dermot Celtic Rabita, said in the comments there, plan A better. And that's really what I'm seeing this season. I think what he's trying to do is, with the signing of Haksabanovic, I believe we're still definitely one, maybe two players yet to come into the squad, which will just allow us to play at that intensity that we do for the opening 45 minutes. Then we have this little lull after half time, and then it all kicks off again around 70 minutes. And it's, I think to me, if I read Ange properly, his biggest concern is that little lull that we get sort of 5 minutes after half time for about 10, 15 minutes before the subs come on. And it'll be somehow finding a way to plug that gap and maintain the intensity of Celtic's press, and also the speed of the attack and the variety of the attack, because Haksabanovic is another Jota-type player. That direct, ball-hungry, wants shots, wants to create things, wants to try things type of player, a bit like Abada, but obviously a bit more experienced. So that mixture of your Kyogos and your Maedas to just give you that sheer intensity of the press, and then your high volume attacking players just to be constantly trying to find holes in the defensive armor. I just don't see us playing any other way. We've built a squad. We're building a squad now in the image of the way the manager wants to play as his default setting. That doesn't suggest to me we're going to suddenly pull out the bag another way of playing. That just wouldn't seem logical to me.
Yeah, the Haksabanovic transfer was confirmed today. Probably a bad day to announce a new signing. We probably could have waited one extra day to get a little bit more support behind that one, because everyone was just waiting for the Champions League draw to finally happen after all of UEFA's nonsense of bringing out old players and all that crap that goes on before the draw. It seems to get longer and longer every single year. Just a quick run through of the group and the head-to-heads in these games. Celtic have actually played Shakhtar 4 times. So they played them in the 04-05 season. Celtic won the home tie 1-0, and Shakhtar won their home tie 3-0 against Celtic, and they also played them in the 07-08 year, and again that finished with 1 win to Celtic, 1 win to Shakhtar. Shakhtar winning 2-0 at home, and Celtic winning 2-1 at home with that one. It's been a while since Celtic have played against Real Madrid. The 1979-80 quarterfinals, Real Madrid winning 3-0 in the Santiago Bernabeu, Celtic winning 2-0 at home in that game. So that's the head-to-heads in those two. I haven't got a chance to look at the Leipzig one, but I think Celtic have only played them once in their history so far. And I don't know. I can't remember top of my head. Anybody remember how it got on?
It was we get a draw there and beat them 2-1. That's when Ryan Christie just had his best game probably for Celtic.
That was the I think 18-19 Europa League campaign.
Yeah, so Celtic, sorry, I have that in front of me now. Celtic won 2-1 at home, and Leipzig won the 2-0 at home against Celtic. So again, we have played them before. We have a record against them, and I mean, I don't think these are teams that Celtic will fear at all. And I guess that brings me on to the game plan that I think Celtic are going to deploy. Pragmatism can be used quite a bit in teams that are going up against, quote unquote better sides. Celtic previously would have been quite a pragmatic side in Europe. If you think back to even the Barcelona game that Celtic famously won under Neil Lennon, I mean, I think Celtic had 3 shots altogether in that game, and they won. I think Celtic are going to be pragmatic, but in a completely different way under Ange Postecoglou. I think it's going to be pragmatism, but on the front foot. So not bunkering in, hoping that these teams don't break us down. I think it's going to be, putting the other team backs against the walls and almost trying to outscore them. And that is pragmatism in a way.
I love that tortured logic. No, I'm kidding. I'm joking. Yeah, I think that, to Alan's point, the idea that there's going to be some major shift, I would be surprised. But, whether or not you're in an effective, I mean, I've seen people where they describe it as like a 2-5-2, or, you know what I mean? Like when we have domestically, we've basically got 2 center backs and then everyone else is forward. There's some tweaks there where maybe you're not quite as far forward in, with how the midfield's deploying. Maybe you're not overloading to quite the extent that we do domestically, those kind of things where you get stuck, as we've commented before, where there's acres of space in transition, because, if it's Vinicius getting them on the ball in, with no one around him, with 100 feet of space, that's different than, your anonymous winger from Motherwell, um, to state the glaring obvious. So, I suspect that's the kind of tweaking that we're going to see. It's on the margins, just to be a little more pragmatic relative to the use of space. But I suspect it'll be on the margins. I mean, I don't think it's going to be like this. We're going to a double pivot and two guys are going to bunker in front of the center backs. I'd be surprised if that's the case, or we go to a flat back four or something like that. I mean, I'd be shocked. But we'll see. That's part of what's going to be so fascinating, because it's already a week and a half away now. It's coming up fast. So I don't think the fixtures aren't out yet, right? We don't know who's playing when yet. That's still to come.
No.
Yeah. So, but yeah, it's just really exciting, because I was, to a degree, I not dreading, but I've had a lot of anxiety about who this draw would be, and that all kind of lifted here. It's a nice relief of getting hope back into the equation, which is nice.
I think Real Madrid playing them third would be the best way to go about things, because you might be able to get some points on the board before you face them. But we'll see that when the fixtures come out. In terms of
it's whenever Benzema pulls a hamstring, so time that perfectly. Whenever that's going to happen.
Well, the one thing you can say about Real Madrid is they always save their best for later on in the competition. I mean, they lost to Sheriff last season before they went on to win the competition. They were absolutely dreadful in the group stages. Were lucky actually to get out of it, and they went on to absolutely dominate then with some amazing comebacks in the later stages. So, maybe Celtic might be able to pull off a result like Sheriff did last season. In terms of the Celtic players, this is a big platform for a lot of players, especially if they want to potentially get to bigger and better things, a bigger paycheck if you go to the Premier League, and maybe a potential La Liga club if you're lucky, like Joseph Juranovic, who's already bringing in some interest from Atletico Madrid. But who do we think is going to star in this competition? Because I have a name in my head that I think is going to surprise a lot of people in this competition. I think he's going to be used the way that he was brought into the club to be used. And I think he's going to be one of Celtic's best players in the competition. But interested to get your thoughts. Alan, are you allowed to say Matt O'Reilly for this answer once again?
Probably. Well, whether I am or not, I will. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how much space he gets. Obviously, I think to the point about what will Celtic potentially do that's pragmatic. There's probably little tweaks that we could do, like you don't have both fullbacks bomb on, so you maybe keep a three. You don't have both number 8s right up front with the striker, so you have a little bit more security in transition. So there's probably little things that Celtic can do like that. But having said that, I think it's the obvious candidates like Jota and O'Reilly that are going to be potentially the ones that stand out in particular. But I would also throw in Carter Vickers because he's just so damn consistent. His consistency is really key, and if he puts in a good shift against the likes of Benzema, he's going to get tested in the air, on the deck, the movement, everything. He's going to get tested in every facet of play. If he can kind of do a decent job there, then I think that will put him in the shot window. And just one other sort of thing, I'm going to go back on, is when we talked about Shakhtar and playing in the past, I always remember they had a spine or they had a load of Brazilians fluttered around the side. And I've just checked them, and I think because of the war situation, they've lost 5 Brazilians that have been transferred out, and another 5 that have been loaned out. So I suspect they'll not quite be as. Though they still seem to have quite a lot of Brazilians in the team. So essentially it's a Brazil-Ukraine select side. So make of that what you will. But yeah, no, I think if I had to pick 3, that would be those 3. It would be O'Reilly, Jota, and Carter Vickers, I think, that will really sort of stand out at that level.
James?
Yeah, I'd say, assuming, I'll echo those. I mean, I think this is where your big name, big money type players, if they're going to deliver on the big stage, I mean, that's when you need it. That's what they're there for. So I think Jota, Carter Vickers, obviously. I think Kyogo. I think there's some. It's still early, but since he's back from his injury, I can infer some This is me speculating to a degree. I'm inferring, so I don't know this for a fact because I don't have access to this kind of information. But kind of the 1 + 1 = 2 situation, that he's lost a step maybe, and that's not unusual with what Steve McGowan I think has reported was a ruptured hamstring. So it can take a while to get that. And in some cases, people never get back the full functionality of a hamstring, even at the highest athletic level from a rupture. So, I can infer through some of his data so far that he hasn't quite gotten that explosiveness back yet. But if he's able to recapture that, I think he could be, particularly in transition. And we saw that against Betis and Leverkusen, because as much as these teams may even sit back a little bit like Real Madrid or it's going to be more two-sided, obviously, than we see domestically. So there's going to be more possession from the opposition in our half, and that means by definition we'll get more opportunities in transition. And I think that's where Jota and Kyogo in particular, if Abada gets some game time, probably as a sub, I'm guessing, at the Champions League level, he could be a difference maker in that regard. So yeah, that's to me, it's going to be how those front three, because we're going to have to score. That's the big thing, and I think being able to do that in transition is going to be a huge part of that.
Mm-hmm. I'll give you my name now.
All right.
I think Daisen Maeda is going to be a really key player for Celtic in the Champions League this year because of his pressing, because of his unknown quantities, and because of his not so much bragging, but saying that he wants to use his pace a little bit more. This season, I think we're going to really see that in the Champions League in two forms. And first, in the pressing, I think he's going to frighten the life out of a couple of teams who, and a lot of these teams still have the sort of opinion of Celtic that lingers on from the old continental view of British football, and that is that Celtic are a British football team who play bog standard British football. So I think Celtic's press will surprise a lot of people the way that they're going to be playing. I think Daisen Maeda is going to be absolutely key to that. So he's going to thrive in that aspect. But I also think that, and this plays into the way that I believe Celtic are going to play anyway in this, and that is much more lateral, direct play on the counter-attack, not so much building it up through the midfield. And I think that means that Aaron Moy could come into midfield as well to benefit from his long-range passing for Daisen Maeda and Jota up the wing. And Kyogo as well, like we saw against Betis for that amazing goal last season. I think that's how Celtic are going to play. I think that's the best method against these teams, is not so much going long all the time, but being much more direct against teams that are going to be pushing up. Real Madrid still play overlapping fullbacks, so it should work against them. And the likes of RB Leipzig, as well. I think it's a way forward for Celtic. It's how they can be effective, in my opinion. Just to get to some of the comments that are coming in, a lot of people are actually quite happy with this group. I think the consensus among Celtic fans probably this is probably the easiest group that Celtic have gotten. Not to be blasé about it. It's still a difficult group with the current Champions League holders in it, but in comparison to the Europa League groups that Celtic have got, this is actually quite a decent group for Celtic to be in for the Champions League. Fud Roaster says if we can make the kickoff stages, this Celtic team can beat anyone on the day. Turkey in May is nice. We're not going to Turkey though, are we? Oh, sorry, Istanbul. Of course, the final is there. Yeah. Madrid don't like it up to them. Quite slow, passive side, said Rusta. Gavin Bennett is a Manchester City fan and he's happy. So good man, Gavin. Not sure why you're here, but congratulations to Manchester City. And Ian Fleming is saying that he thinks it's a decent group for us. So yeah, I mean, I think the consensus in the comments is all fairly positive for Celtic. Alan, let's pretend you're Ange Postecoglou now. I know there's currently a press conference ongoing with some media and fan media, so we'll probably hear from them probably later tonight, if not tomorrow morning. What would you be saying to the players about this group? What would you be saying to the players about the Champions League? Nothing changes, I guess, is going to be the boring answer for this, but privately.
Yeah, listen, I think you tell them. I don't think he tells them anything different to what he tells us in public, because I don't think he's a mind game type manager. He'll be telling them that they have to believe that they can do well, and that they have to believe in each other and themselves, that the way that they play is going to cause these teams some difficulty. And it's as simple as that. Don't overcomplicate it. It doesn't have to be a complicated message. It's just maintain the belief in each other, in the group, and in what the system of play is. I mean, I heard the sort of phrase "system manager" yesterday, which I'd not heard before. And Postecoglou is really, because he builds a team to play a particular system, and we've recruited really coherently in that regard. So there should absolutely be belief that group of players can play in the way that the team believes that is the most effective way to play. So, and then it's about put yourself in the shop window. This is a great opportunity for all your careers to play in probably the premier club competition in the world and be shown on television. So who wouldn't want to embrace that? I think these are going to be very basic, simple messages. There may be some little nuances that he picks out for each particular team. I kind of hope that they are. And actually, I was just thinking, Enda, you said you're hoping that maybe we get Madrid at the double header in the middle. I actually disagree. I think it'd be great to have them first up, because I don't, as much as I'm sure they're very professional and will scout Celtic, I don't think they'd expect Celtic to go at them with quite the ferocity that would happen. And Madrid are probably thinking, are we going to be at our peak in May for the semi-final? Not are we going to be in our peak for the first group match against this annoying team that's going to chase us all over the park? So I'd actually quite fancy having them up first and have a right go at them. I think that could, if we get a point out of that just sets you up beautifully for the rest of the group.
In terms of Celtic in Europe, then, it has not been pleasant viewing for a lot of the last 10, 12, 13, 14 years. It's been a long time since Celtic have won a knockout game. It's been a long time since Celtic have done anything in the Champions League. James, I'll come back to you just on this, but Alan, I don't suppose you have the data handy for Celtic's results at home in European competition in comparison to away, because we hear a lot about the Celtic atmosphere. People love bringing up quotes from Xavi, Iniesta, Messi, all these players that have played in Parkhead, and how fun they thought it was and how enjoyable the atmosphere was. I'm getting fairly sick of that, because yes, it's amazing that Celtic have this atmosphere and it's so fun to watch and it's all great, but if you're not coming away with a result, then what's the point? So what's the actual data on Celtic at home in comparison to away?
Well, I mean, it's been poor, isn't it? So if you just look back over the last few seasons, 3-1 at home, Bodo Glimt, 4-0 Leverkusen, 3-1 Milan, 4-1 Sparta Prague, 2-1 Ferencváros, 3-1 Copenhagen, 3-4 Cluj, 2-0 Valencia, 1-2 Salzburg.
Stop! I'm going to throw up.
I know, right? So it's just pretty grim, actually. but listen. Let's be positive. That was Lowell era Celtic. That was play European matches.
He might be back in the next week or so, Alan. I wouldn't be.
No. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. I promise you. That's a case of let's put the bare bones team that have never played as a coherent unit before together for a European match. Those days hopefully are gone, right? We're in a very different place in that regard. So, I'm with you, right? I think the slightly patronising comments about great atmosphere, great fans, we love to go there. You don't want to love to go there. You want to hate going there. You want it to be a miserable experience for the opposition, to be honest. But as I've just reeled off with those scores, it really hasn't been. I mean, there's been some good ones, right? I think beating Lille, a good Lille team, 3-2. I think the game against Betis last season, when essentially I wouldn't even call them a B team. It was like a sort of bunch of misfits and never will be's, as has been proved. Managed to beat a very good Betis team. I think that was quite memorable in a very odd way. I think beating a good Rennes team 3-1 was a great performance. Lazio obviously 2-1 was decent. So I think there have been, and Leipzig. I think Leipzig was a superb performance to beat them, in the 18-19 season. So, balance that up a bit. But if you look at the last Champions League fixtures that we played, 17-18 season, 5-0 Paris Saint-Germain, 2-1 Bayern Munich, 1-0 Anderlecht. That's what we've got to improve on, definitely.
Yeah. And James, so look, Bodo Glimt were playing last night. They didn't make it through to the Champions League, but They are proof that, you know, having a absolutely dominant home results in your favor and being incredibly difficult to beat at home can get you places when it comes to Champions League, when it comes to Europa League, when it comes to European football and playing against teams that aren't prepared to play you in your home stadium. You know, the other side of Glasgow have made very good use of their home fixtures as well in the last couple of years in Europe. It is time for Celtic to start turning these atmospheres into results on the pitch, and that is something that I'd say Postecoglou is going to want in this Champions League, is to take advantage of their home fixtures at least.
Yeah, I think that's a minimum, and you know, as hopeful as we it seems like we all are, given the draw, to sprinkle some reality back on it a little bit is, you know, as a pot 4 team, I think and we talked about this. I mentioned it, you know, weeks ago. Is kind of the goal. The underlying goal would be to be third, and then have a nice run in the Europa League, and I think that's still you know, a reasonable base case for progress and being able to secure points at home against the teams that we need to do that. I mean, I think, you know, getting 4 points off of Shakhtar and getting a result against RB Leipzig at home would be, you know, that's kind of the pathway to that third position. So do I think it's possible that we could sneak into second and eclipse RB Leipzig in this group? Sure. But, you know, yeah, they're what are they, 6th or 7th after 3 games, but one of those they lost a guy around halftime, so they played a man down, and it looks like they bombarded Stuttgart at Stuttgart and happened to draw 1-1 in one of those games where they had 26 shots and they only scored 1 goal. You know, so and they haven't had Werner in yet, so they're, you know, as much as on the margins, as I stress, on the margins, you know, the nightmare scenario of, you know, 3 young, relatively young, athletic, high press intensity type of teams in our group that I was having nightmares about didn't happen. So this is the, you know, the flip side of that. But I think realistically, it's still hopefully third. I think now reasonable, you know, better than a coin flip, let's say. At that, meaning that going in, it was like, okay, if we get a decent draw in that third pot, hey, we can, you know, even like a Dortmund, somebody like, oh, well, we got a puncher's chance, like a good shot at third, maybe. And now with it being Shakhtar, and given the situation that they have, I think we, you know, reasonably could be favorites for third. I think you can make a reasonable argument in that case. And then it's about building towards, you know, making a real run in the Europa League, and that's going to require, you know, more of a fortress ability at home, and so that'll start hopefully in, you know, a couple of weeks here, and again, we've got the group, I think, to be able to start, you know, building that momentum and more of a confidence. I think that's probably the big thing at this point is getting that confidence up, because, you know, as great as last season was domestically, there was also a lot of potential ammo for confidence to be shook, particularly on the defensive side of the ball, relative to competing in Europe. So, you know, I think starting that process will be very important.
Yeah, for sure. The Huddle Breakdown is brought to you in association with the One Football app. If you want to get a really good football app, just hit the link in the description below and you can download it now. You'll be able to follow the Champions League live on their fixtures and results, and you'll be able to get all the transfer news as well, and you'll be supporting the channel. We're also brought to you with Football Prizes, who have 3 very good giveaways this week. Lila Bada, George Giacomakis, and Cal McGregor. 3 signed and framed photo montages of those 3 players as well. So if you want to get your hands on them, we'll be sharing out the link for that in the next day or so. So that would be very much appreciated if you could download the link in the description below and get involved with Football Prizes as well. So just as we round this chat up then, Alan, if you were to rank your confidence level of getting out of this group, which I think Celtic should be aiming for, what would it be out of 10?
So at least finishing third, you mean? Yeah, that'd be
No, I'd say getting out of the group is getting out of getting into the Champions League knockout stages.
Okay. Probably maybe a 5 and a bit, 10, because I'm a bit like that.
Yeah.
I never score
I
high.
know. Ranking out of 10 is a bit arbitrary, but
yeah. And I'd probably go a 7 out of 10 for at least finishing third. To be honest, you know, the number of times we've seen Celtic just look underprepared and half cooked, and you just know that this time, listen, all sorts of variants can go against you, as I always can in these types of games, in terms of sendings off, daft penalties, and the like, and the sort of mistakes that PSV made in their two games, just absolutely horrendous, and to do it twice, essentially in two games, things like that can happen, right? And we've seen them happen to Celtic more often than not in Europe. So, putting all that to one side, we've got a really coherent, consistent performances that we're putting together. We're winning domestic games. I know Sunday wasn't pretty, but the underlying data was another overwhelming victory. So the basic performance data is there, and as I keep saying, as I will keep saying consistently every week, it's very consistent, and that's and I love that. That's what you're looking for. You're looking for that consistency, and we're going to be we're going to be pretty well warmed up, as it were, when it comes to kicking off these games. We've had a nice run in. It's one game a week, but the players have had a number of games under their belts. As I say, if you look at Donetsk, they've only played one league game. That's been pretty much it. Leipzig are only relatively new into the season as well. So I think I would expect us to be very strong, especially in the opening couple of games in the group, where there'll be a little bit of the unknown for the opposition, a little bit of this sort of surprise factor. Because again, they might look at Celtic playing Kilmarnock and sort of think, well, what do you learn from that, right? What do you learn from that in terms of playing against Leipzig? You probably don't think you learn much, but when you see suddenly, right, they're actually going to go for your throat in the away leg, they may not expect that. So I think we'll have that element of surprise in the first couple of games. We'll be nicely warmed up as a squad. So yeah, I think I'm actually quite not confident, but I'm hopeful we'll get off to a good start. And once you do that, there's a momentum, there's a belief, and there's a confidence that starts to flow.
Okay, I'm bumping you up to a 6 out of 10 after that answer. So,
okay, fair enough.
James, out of 10, your confidence levels?
So to get out of the group, I'm probably a little lower. I'd say probably a 3. Yeah, I mean, again, the practical realities of this. But I actually, I'm a little higher. I'm more like an 8 as far as securing third. So it could be one of those groups where, Shakhtar gets very little. I could see that being a scenario where they get, only a couple of points, maybe not even win any games, that kind of thing. So we could be, one of the higher scoring third place teams, but it's going to be tough, I think, to supplant, because I wouldn't even be surprised to see Leipzig supplant Real Madrid as the number one, because again, we're still dealing with a very good Bundesliga side, and as we saw last year with Leverkusen, that is a tier of quality that is very good. So yeah, I think that's the case, and then depending on how things play out, we'll see. We haven't talked about the transfer window that much. I think what we do here in this last few days could be a big deciding factor as to whether or not we could have a legit run then in the Europa League. Because if we make a couple of quality additions in areas of need, I think that could be a game changer in that regard. Obviously, that could also play a role in the group as well, but I'm not sure that's going to make a huge difference in the dynamics relative to Real Madrid and Leipzig. But
yeah, I would imagine with Haksabanovic now in the door that Celtic are going to turn their attention to Stanisov from Hajduk Split, who has been linked with Celtic over the last couple of days or so, number 6. So what we've been looking for, a defensive midfielder. So if he comes in, then Celtic's transfer window has been very successful in that sense. I think we've improved in each position if we do manage to bring in an out-and-out centre defensive midfielder, which will certainly help in games later on as we maybe potentially look to finish out a game strong and hopefully secure a win. Fud Roaster says that he thinks Celtic will get 10 points, 2 wins at home, a draw away, and a win away in Poland against Shakhtar. I think that's doable. Just about. It's doable just about. And I'm fairly confident. I'd say Celtic have the potential to get out of this group, finishing second. And at the bare minimum, I think they're going to finish third and get into the Europa League. And we'll see how they get on after that. Any final points before we finish up? I know, Alan, we won't have the benefit of having the Scottish referees on our side when it comes to these games. So unfortunately, Shakhtar will probably finish the game with 11 players on the pitch as opposed to 9 because, all we know is all fouls are the same. So if you have more fouls, you should get more red cards, and that's not usually how it works, is it?
No. I shall defer on talking about that until my expert comes back to me on that one. But yes, nicely done. No. Listen, I know as we said in the comments, I think Ian Fleming said have more confidence in your team. But listen, what would success look like if Celtic get through to any post-Christmas European competition and win a knockout tie? That is a fantastic season, right? It is a fantastic season. So if we can achieve that, I'll be kind of happy. And then if we do better, then that's just amazing. But when was the last time we did that? You're going back sort of nearly 20 years actually. So I think we have to be realistic. But on the other hand, I would take confidence from what we've. I know it's a very different team, a very different mindset, a very different way of playing, but we've seen on the other side of the city what that team has achieved, and Celtic were clearly the better team in the league last season, so we should take confidence that they should be able to go to teams like Leipzig and actually compete well and take points off them. So yeah, I'll feel more confident when I've thought about it a bit more, but until the game actually kicks off, I'll just default to when's the next horrible thing going to happen? But yeah, as I say, if we win one knockout tie after Christmas in either competition, I think that's a really great season.
James, any final point?
No, much to the audience's delight, I'll say no.
All right. Well, we shall follow the Champions League group stages over the next couple of weeks, and we'll be looking at these games in the same way that we look at the league games. Celtic have a fixture against Ross County, I believe, this weekend.
Dundee United, isn't it?
Dundee United away.
Ross County's midweek, I think, for the Cup next week.
Sorry, yes, that is where I was getting mixed up. So it's Dundee United and then Ross County. So not quite Real Madrid and RB Leipzig, but still, you need to get the results in those games.
Well, let's just applaud getting back to 2 games a week, so we can all stop twiddling our thumbs for 3 or 4 days out of the week. Get back into the routine, and celebrate that for the most part it'll be Saturday, Wednesday, or Saturday, Tuesday. So that's going to be a nice little treat after quite a number of years of Sundays.
Yep. Alan, the seagulls are calling for their dinner, so I'm going to let you go. And it's currently looking like I'm phoning in from Donetsk at the minute with the light is currently, it's falling down, so you won't be able to see me fairly soon. James, Alan, thanks a million as always. And to everyone who got involved in the comments and listens and watches every single week, thanks very much, and please continue to do so. And again, if you want to subscribe to the YouTube channel, you can do so below, and you can support the channel by downloading the OneFootball app using the link in the description, or you can get involved in the many prizes that Football Prizes give away every week that we share on the channel using the promo code breakdown. Gets you 10% off on site as well. They've got some brilliant prizes, and this week it's going to be a signed Lee Labada, Cal McGregor and George Giacomakis, 3 separate things that they're giving away. They're all signed photographs from the 3 lads, so that's a pretty decent prize to come away with if you get involved with that. James, Alan, thanks very much.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Yeah, take care.
All right.
Enjoy your vacation, Alan.
Yeah, enjoy, Alan. Have a good one, and we'll chat to you next week. Good luck.